Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Truths We Hide podcast. This is Annette, your host, and today I want to introduce you to Mark Mazzone. He's a regular guy from the military family. His dad is actually a retired United States Marine Corps, and he's been serving his fellow citizens in some capacity since he was younger. Additionally, he is a U.S. Army combat veteran. He has a BA in English from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. He has worked in software and IT project management and is a consumer of all things tech and fantasy. For example, the Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. But most importantly, he has founded his own business called Verily, and I can't wait for you to listen to his story. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Good. Like, just another Monday, a busy Monday at that.
That is so true. And you're calling us from Maryland, right?
Yep, Laurel, Maryland, right down the road from Fort Meade.
And how long have you lived there?
Wow. So actually, once we hit the end of May, I will have been living in Laurel, or more specifically Maryland, for 5 years.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And I see that you lived in North Carolina before.
I was pretty much raised there. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, which is also where my father was born. But I am the child of a United States Marine. So my dad did 20 years in the Marine Corps, but he moved from Michigan to California and then finished out his time in service in North Carolina. He retired from there, and then that's just where I grew up. So I spent, when I was about from 8 years old on until 5 years ago when I moved to Maryland, and outside, of course, my active duty time where I was stationed in Washington State, but primarily North Carolina.
Oh my gosh, I've never been there. Well, actually, no, I went and visited there. I have a cousin that lives there, but I've always heard really nice things about it. So I'd like to go back and see more of the area. I see that you have a list of accomplishments within the military. So tell us a little bit about your background with that, and then how you came to you have founded Verily, a employment search solution for those that are seeking. So tell
Sure
us
thing.
about that.
From the military, when I graduated high school, I thought I was going to go straight to college, like my brother and just plenty of other people I knew. But the funny thing is that the sort of the running joke is I was too scared to go to college, so I joined the Army instead. So because I had a tiny scholarship to go to the community college there, I was really interested in drafting and that sort of thing. My dad is quite the craftsman, but he gets that from his dad. My grandfather, who's a World War II vet, actually, and he passed when I was in middle school. He had built the house that they stayed in up in Detroit, like everything. So I decided to join the Army. And one of my best friends growing up, because we all there's a group of us that grew up together, and all of our parents respectively were military, whether it's Navy, Marine Corps, mostly Navy and Marine Corps, just because Camp Lejeune is one of the largest Marine Corps bases in the country, and that's down in Jacksonville, North Carolina. So he convinced me. He's like, "Hey, just come talk to the recruiter." He had joined he had basically joined already. He was satellite communications. I joined, liked what I heard. I said, okay, sure, why not? Didn't get much of a bonus really, and because my concern was just being able to pay for college, because I knew it was going to be on me to be able to do that. So, which was fine. Went from the recruiter a couple months later. So in August of 2000, went to boot camp. Started off at Fort Jackson. The base was full. Then went to Fort Knox, Kentucky. Finished out there. Did my job training, or my MOS training for those who speak military. I think it's called AFSC or something like that in the Air Force. But I did that in Augusta, Georgia, also where they have the Masters tournament.
Nice.
Trying to find parking during that time is a nightmare. And my schooling was about 6 months. Augusta, Georgia is a really nice place. It really is. Then went from there, got to I came back to North Carolina at hometown recruiting for about a month, I think, was on leave. And then from there went to Fort Lewis, Washington, now called Joint Base Lewis McChord, because McChord Air Force Base is literally right next door. That's about 45-ish minutes south of Seattle. And I got to my unit 3 weeks before 9/11 happened.
Oh my gosh.
I never thought that I would ever see war, much like I never thought I'd see a pandemic during my lifetime either.
Right.
So a lot of crazy stuff. got to my net, and I can tell you exactly where I was standing when it happened because, of course, Washington State's 3 hours behind the East Coast. So we were, getting ready for doing, PT physical training, and by that point, when I had gone downstairs, the first plane had hit, and then by the time, of course, I came back, and an hour later, everything else just kind of went completely sideways. So was out in Fort Lewis for about 3 years. Then we went to Iraq from November 03 to November 04. I was part of the 1st Stryker Brigade. So General Shinseki at the time was the Army Chief of Staff. He, of course, later became the VA Secretary, as some may or may not know. But and the Stryker was his pet project. Which actually the Stryker was kind of came after the LAV, which the Marine Corps had. There was just some differences in the way the vehicles were built. But came back in November of 04, got off active duty in March of 05, came back to North Carolina, went to college, and I was a double major, poli-sci and English, dropped the poli-sci part, stuck to English, and everyone thought I wanted to be a teacher. I'm like, no, not in North Carolina. I have a lot of love and respect for my teachers. I couldn't do it. I really couldn't. But my teachers growing up were amazing, and especially like one of my teachers, my drafting teacher, as a matter of fact, when I was in high school, he was a Marine officer. He'd gone to the Naval Academy. Excellent guy, and not to mention my other teachers too. They were phenomenal. But once I came back to North Carolina, after about 2 years, I missed the military, so I was like, oh, let me just do this part time. So I joined the North Carolina Army National Guard, and from there was still in college doing the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year thing. Things, of course, ramped up. They're like, oh, by the way, you're deploying again. I'm like, awesome. So took about a year and a half off from school. I went to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, right there on the coast, and just finished that out. Well, came back from the deployment, finished college at the end of 2012, worked for a software company as a technical writer, and then shortly thereafter, not too long after, but a decent amount of time, ended up moving to Maryland because my ex, but so, and then 4 months after we came to Maryland, that's when I started working for the government as a contractor. I work for the National Institutes of Health right now. I'm in the IT project management field, doing training, technical writing. God, I have like 5 or 6 jobs. It's amazing, great organization, great people, especially the team I work with. My boss, she's amazing. I'm very, very fortunate to work with the people that I do. But really, to that sort of, the professional timeline, but where Verily came about was when I had come back from when I got off active duty and the second Iraq tour I did, I had been on unemployment both times. Now, I wasn't really aware in 2009 that the housing crisis had happened because it really didn't affect me at all. I had been removed from everything because I had been in the Middle East, so knowing that happened was completely foreign to me. My parents were fine. No one had lost their jobs, their house, none of that. I was very, very fortunate that it worked out that way. And but the issue I had was, was finding a job. Even after I worked for the software company, to find a job in Eastern North Carolina when you're not west of I-95 in Raleigh, Charlotte, the big metro areas, with an English degree, not an easy thing to do. So unless you're in IT, engineering, medicine, or finance, because Bank of America's headquarters is in Charlotte, it's a beautiful building too, but it's difficult. My brother is an electrical engineer, so now he's been working for the same people for about 16 years. So he's in a very high demand field. But for a guy like me, dealing with the subject that I did, it was pretty difficult. So I ended up doing tech support for Apple and got lucky because of a friend I knew. And he's like, hey, you should apply, and so on. But it was very difficult to find a job, and that's sort of where the idea was born. It didn't exist in the form that it is now. Back then, it was a much broader concept. It was really tied to veterans, to public safety, law enforcement, and government. All those things wrapped into one as more of a professional network, if you will. So I had really worked on that idea for a while, drawn up some screens, wrote some business plan type stuff, but what I realized is I would have needed like Apple's capital, Apple's money to the tune of like millions, if not more, dollars to really build out what it could have been. And I'm actually glad it didn't work out the way I anticipated or hoped. And the funny thing is, when things don't really work out, it really makes you sort of refocus, regroup, and really like laser in on like what really matters. So a few years after that, I still, bits and pieces, thought about the idea, worked on it, but then I kind of hit a spot where, I had sacrificed a lot, a marriage, professional, personal relationships. Things had really, like, it hurt.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of sacrifice was involved. And I actually took a sliver of a piece of the entire platform concept, a sliver of it, and extracted that. And that's what became Verily. So it was really like, okay, well, if you're out looking for jobs, everything should be easy. It should be streamlined. It should save you, time and effort and all that. And that's how all that was born. And that's how we arrived. We started building the platform because the idea was, fleshed out a couple of years ago, but we started building it because I got lucky and crossed paths with some engineers. And here we are 7 months later and not too far away from a soft launch, actually.
Wow. That's incredible. So how did you feel? So with it wasn't easy. I can imagine trying to build this. So how did you continue to stay motivated when things didn't go the way that you had planned or hoped for in the beginning?
That's the motivation was tough, especially in any sort of relationship when one person's an entrepreneur. Statistically, they don't last because whether you're married or it's your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever it is, normally one person is really the one who, of course, is doing all the work alongside what other team they have. And of course, what I went through paled in comparison. My mentor actually now lost way more than I did. And even I've read plenty of stories, heard about several where, you have like married couples who've taken out second mortgages on their house. I rent. I don't own a house. But
Yeah.
I've heard of stories where they take out second mortgages and because they are so focused and they believe in what they're trying to do so much, they literally risk and lose everything. So fortunate for me, it hasn't come to that. And God willing, I hope it doesn't.
Yeah.
But with the motivation factor and giving the sort of stress and pressure and everything else going on in my life, it was really hard to keep it. It really was. I've had the support of some really remarkable people. My best friend, of course, and he was also, he's actually currently serving in the Air Force station in Florida, and he's kind of been there when things just kind of went sideways, just to be that rock when everyone should have the best friend they can lean on in that way. My parents, I'm sure they got tired of just me dealing with what I had to deal with, but their love is unconditional, and for them to be there for me really meant a lot. And now they're really getting to see the fruits of my labor and that of the team that I've managed to put together. They're going to get to see the fruits of that, and I know they're really proud. Anyone who supported me throughout this, and there have been some naysayers, but
Yeah.
That's to be expected. But for the people who have been there, even my own team now, just again with everything, to have that love, support, and encouragement from the people who really matter to you is what keeps you going. So, and sometimes you need to take a break just to really kind of recharge, because there is a such thing as burnout, and entrepreneurs, more specifically, your small business owners, which have unfortunately, especially the current times, have suffered the most. You find the encouragement and the support where you can, and when you have those people who are close to you, and those are the people throughout everything are the ones you really need to keep by your side. Sometimes you have to cut relationships because they're either toxic or they drain the energy you need to channel to what matters to you. But ultimately, when you have those people, it makes, I won't say it makes everything seem a lot easier, but it makes it bearable. And it really, it gives you it puts you in the mindset where, yes, I'm the person who sacrificed a lot, in the beginning, but with their support, it almost seems like it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
So it's kind of easy to move past, because I wouldn't change anything that happened in my life at all.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or otherwise, I really wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's keeping the motivation it's been challenging, but it's definitely doable. And sometimes it breaks people, sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, especially when you've seen war, sometimes sometimes it seems easy in comparison to that, but that's a story for another time.
Right. No, I appreciate you saying that, because I was going to ask you, how did you get past the people that were looking at you crazy, like, are you kidding me? You really want to do this? And how do you think you're going to do it? Why are you doing it? And so it's hard to push past that, because then you start to second guess yourself, and you're asking yourself, why